Welcome in, everyone. It's Tuesday night. It's time for the Bama Standard, the top show for Alabama content on YouTube and pretty much everywhere. Before we get started, you know what to do. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, live chat. Well, you already got that covered, but get wild tonight if you're watching the replay in that comment section. We expect a whole lot of love. As always, we're brought to you by Workspace Solutions. If your business needs a full-fledged marketing team or a digital presence or a myriad of other business needs met, go to workspacepros.com right now and let them handle all that for you. This is an all-star crew. I'm Justin Riley. I'm the cool kid. Well, actually, I'm the nerd at the cool kids table. And with me, as always, the undefeated, undisputed king of comedy and the absolute star of the show, the man who drives in all the ratings, the Steve Brown.
What's up, guys? What's going on? I'm glad to be here, man. I just had to get myself situated and come on because I'm here in Miami. I got a show down here tonight in about an hour, but I got to come on and show, the channel some love. And I'm glad to be here with my brothers, and I'm ready to do it.
Yes, sir. Glad to have you here. And the 1999 All-SEC linebacker, when Ric Flair said to be the man, woo, you got to beat the man. He is that man, Marvin Constant.
Roll Tide, baby, roll Tide. Who is
Yes,
hard
sir.
at work. Always.
And the senior analyst of Touchdown Alabama Magazine and international sex symbol, and the star of the Paul Feinbaum Show, Stephen M. Smith.
In my old to Marvin Constant, black shirt, baby, black shirt.
Hey, man, he drove those fine bomb ratings all the way up. Everybody was watching it.
I appreciate that. Well, I had to set Paul straight. Paul can go off the rails sometimes, so I had to come in and set Paul in line there. So.
Hey, man, my aunt was like, who is the cute guy? And I was like, who's Steve? And she's like, hell no, Paul. I'm like, oh, okay.
It was the ears, right?
Let's go, Jimmy. Jimmy Clay.
Hey,
let's go.
right off the bat, Jimmy Clay dropping 20 in the super chat. Thank you, Jimmy Clay. Folks, we got a big show tonight. We got a lot to cover, and our guest of honor is going to be here in roughly 20 minutes. That's Brian Robinson. But first, we got some things we got to talk about. The Heisman Trophy race is heating up, and until recently, it really hadn't meant a whole lot to Alabama fans. But that all changed over the course of a couple of weeks because Jaylen Milroe has entered into the conversation. But in order for us to realistically evaluate his chances, we have to know, what he's up against. So we're going to talk about it. I have some help tonight. The head of talent evaluation for the Bama Standard, and a man that actually developed his own team talent formula. He's always busy doing recruiting season and in the NFL draft evaluating everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in Tyler Turner. What's going on, Tyler?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's up, Tyler? Let me say this. I hear all your accolades, and I respect what you do, and I'm glad you're here, but I'm really not happy you're here, and I'll tell you why, but I'm sure it's going to be wonderful, but I'm not happy you're here at all, and you understand why I'm not happy that you're here, but I'm very interested in what you got to say.
You're not happy, but you're interested. That's good.
Right. I'm not happy that you're here, and I'll tell you why, and then you'll understand. But I'm happy that you're here. It makes sense, but it doesn't make sense. But it does make sense, but it doesn't. But usually most of the stuff I say don't make sense. So let's do it.
Let's make it make sense.
Please.
We're going to make it make sense.
Because that dangling carrot is really mysterious, and we got to know how that is going to be unraveled. But Ty, we greatly appreciate your time tonight. You've actually come right from an event where you spoke, so we greatly appreciate you creating a little bit of space to be with us. Let's get right to it. You've had a chance to really evaluate the top-tier candidates in this race right now, two of which are of big interest to you because you're a Pac-12 fan primarily, mainly Oregon, and you've had an opportunity to see Bo Nix develop as he left Auburn and came over to Oregon and finally found himself, so to speak, with competent coaching. And you also had an opportunity to see Michael Penix and his unraveling. But most importantly, you got to see them head to head, that battle. So based on what you've seen from both of them individually and in that game, where do you see both of them in this race right now?
So if I was just going to go solely on that, can you hear me good, by the way?
Perfect.
Hear me good?
Yeah.
Okay. If I was just going to go solely by the Washington versus Oregon game, which is a great game, it's one of the better games of college football this year, I would say Michael Penix, right? He won the game. I think he had about 4 touchdowns, threw about 400 yards. But since that game, Bo Nix has been on fire. He's had about 13 touchdowns passing. He's had about 4 rushing touchdowns. Oregon's pretty much been blowing everyone out. Washington has actually struggled a little bit more, even offensively. They had a pretty bad game against Arizona State. I don't think Penix even had a touchdown pass. He had a really good game against USC. He was a little up and down last week against Utah. And I try to be unbiased. I'm by the way, I'm not a Pac-12 fan. I'm actually a Big Ten fan, and guess what? They're going to be in the Big Ten next year. But I am an Oregon fan. But Bo Nix has been very, very consistent this season. And the last 4 weeks, he's been he's completing 80% of his passes. He pretty much what he does is where the offense goes, and the offense is number 2 most efficient offense in college football. SP Plus rates at number 1, actually.
Well, looks like
we lost him.
Boost Mobile is the culprit here, but
He ran out of minutes.
He ran out of minutes. But guys, you're watching.
It was getting so good.
But guys, you had a chance to kind of watch the race as it's played out, and Marvin, maybe even you've added a little bit of money in your betting in terms of the race. What have you seen from the candidates so far? Who has stood out the most to you? Before we get to Jalen Milroe, we'll eventually get to his involvement in this, but we got Ty back. But yeah,
all right, sorry. Is that my end?
That is,
yeah.
But Marvin, if you would,
man.
Who is standing out to you right now before we go back to join Ty in the middle of what he was saying?
Right now, if they were to give this award away, it pains my heart to say it. It will probably go to Jayden Daniels down there from those other guys. I told y'all before we played them that this kid has been playing lights out since he was a freshman at Arizona State. This kid is just that good. And, had Dallas not knocked him out of that game, I'm sure he would have continued to torture our defense as well. I mean, the kid is as advertised. He's just that good. So, and what he did this past Saturday, oh my God, he just dismantled Florida this past Saturday. That was, the kid, he's that good. I'm a firm believer, give credit where credit is due. If the award we're giving right now, it will go to him, back to that ugly boot state.
Steve, you look like you agree with a lot of what he said. Care to weigh in?
Yeah, it would definitely be Jayden Daniels. Why? Because he's playing against real competition. He's playing against the SEC. I feel like the Pac-12, they don't play defense. They don't play defense at all. It's pretty much just like the Big 12. They just want to outscore you. So you gotta look at what these guys are doing in the Pac-12. Would Bo Nix be able to do this against a Georgia or upstart Alabama? Would he be able to do that against somebody like that? These teams.
Steve, to your point,
I'm saying.
I know.
Hold on, I'm saying.
I want to interject what you said. He had a chance at Auburn and didn't do it.
Well,
Didn't do it. So the competition is obviously not an SEC competition, even though there are a lot of down teams in the SEC this year. But that's just what it is. And Jayden Daniels is doing his year in. Just the whole season. So it has to be him. I can't look. People are looking at this eye candy and all that, but who are they playing? Who are they playing? Let's keep them 100.
Gotcha. Real quick, Jamie Wilhelm, $9.99. Roll Tide, not to jump ahead, but how do you feel about our chances against Georgia? We'll talk about that a little later. And then Big Bill from New York, $5. They finally are called running plays for Milroe, and the results speak for themselves. RTR. Stephen S. Smith, before I give it to you, I'm going to let Ty have a chance to weigh in on what's being said. Ty, how do you respond to the moniker of the Pac-12 not having legit defenses and then seeing what Bo Nix did against Alabama? Where do you stand with that? And have things really changed for Bo?
Oh,
Oh, looks like
oh,
we are still having some problems. Oh, well, he's actually on two screens. I don't know how he does that. I mean, he must have switched to AT&T.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
yeah.
can.
Yeah, sorry. I'm like have perfect signal, and for some reason it gets knocked out. Do you have to be like on Wi-Fi on here?
It definitely
Pretty
helps.
much.
But
It
I'm
helps.
not sure how much you were able to hear from these two gentlemen, but one of the things that's been charged against the Pac-12 is lack of defense. And they feel like maybe the numbers for, say, a Bo Nix and Michael Penix may be a little skewed. What is your argument to that, and how do you combat that?
Sorry, it does seem like the connection's a little bit off, but hopefully you guys can hear me. Yeah, definitely the defense is in the Pac-12. I'm not going to try to argue that they're as good as the defenses in the SEC. But at the same time, you just kind of have to look at how each individual player is making plays, is statistically driving their team forward to be in the chance for the playoff spot or be competitive in general. And when you look at Bo Nix particularly, if you took him off of Oregon's roster, that's a different team because of how efficient he has been. He's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in college football. He doesn't make mistakes. They have one of the most efficient, best offenses in college football. It's just hard to argue about his production so far this year. And if he's able to take the back to the Pac-12 championship, defeat Washington, and make the college football playoff, he definitely has a very, very strong case for the Heisman Trophy. You could also make a very strong argument for someone like Jayden Daniels. Despite his team not having the results, he definitely is putting up some terrific numbers in a very tough conference against some very good teams. He was having a great game against Alabama until he got hurt. So if I was to say right now who the favorite is, I still think there's a lot of time. Whether it be Michael Penix, whether it be Bo Nix, whether it be Jayden Daniels. I mean, look at Marvin Harrison for Ohio State. He pretty much right now seems to be carrying their offense. And I think he's doing it with a kind of subpar quarterback play. And he's a one-man show out there. You know they're going to try to get him the ball. And he's making plays. So he's another person you'd have to consider. Who else would I consider as a Heisman contender right now?
Carry on Arnold.
What'd you say?
He said Terrion Arnold, our defensive back. But there is one. Well, he got booted off again. I'm telling you, man.
Terrion did it when he didn't.
Terrion did it because that wasn't the first name that was thrown into the hat here.
No.
While we work on getting him back, Stephen M. Smith, you've been quiet here. If you would go ahead and let's hear what you had to say. And now that Ty's back, tie in your questions you have for Ty regarding the Heisman race, and then we'll get to Jalen Milroe, the reason that a lot of Alabama fans are interested in this race.
Well, I mean, I agree with Marvin and Steve. When you look at Jayden Daniels, to me, this young man not just carrying his team, but has put on incredible numbers. This dude literally, if not for Dallas Turner, who knows what much more Jayden Daniels have done in that game against Alabama. I mean, the kid guy's running the football well, passing the football well. I think he's got over 30 total touchdowns here on the season. I would have Bo Nix second behind Jayden Daniels, but Daniels right now, if the trophy was awarded, it would go to that young man out of LSU if it was awarded right now. But my question for you, Ty, is when you look at these Heisman voters, in your opinion, what do they look at specifically? Because some guys look at the storyline, some guys look at the numbers, some guys look at how the particular team is doing. From your viewpoint, what do Heisman voters and the people look at specifically to say, okay, this guy's the most deserving here?
So sorry, you're cutting out a little bit. So ask that question again.
I was saying, so a lot of people, they look at different criteria for the Heisman. Some look at a great storyline, a guy that battled through adversity, that type of deal. Some look at numbers. Some look at how well the particular team is doing. But just from your vantage point, what's the biggest criteria that a lot of the people look at when it comes to awarding the Heisman?
Well, we lost him again.
I guess my question was too much, man.
It may have been, but for me, I go back to what was mentioned earlier. Who means the most to their team right now? If you were to remove X player from their team, what would their season look like? I don't think any team benefits more than LSU. If you take Jayden Daniels off, they're fighting to be a 500 team at best. You know, a bowl game, Birmingham Bowl is their ceiling.
Oh, Dad, the
Selma Bowl.
Look, the Dollar General Bowl, man. If you take away Jayden Daniels.
Hey, I just got some Dollar General shoes today. Don't do that.
the official sponsor of this segment.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anybody who's matching what he's doing right now. I mean, the game he had against Florida, no one's doing that. He's thrown for over 3,100 yards. He's about to eclipse 1,000 yards rushing. The dude's an absolute beast. 1B for me would be Michael Penix.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hold on, Justin. Here's the thing, though. When you look at Jayden Daniels versus Michael Penix, this is what should stick out to you. Yes, Jayden Daniels has 3 losses, but those 3 losses are to number 4, Florida State, number 8, Alabama, and number 11, Missouri. So it's not like he's losing to just average teams or playing average teams week in and week out. This team has had to play the best of the best. I mean, you look at it, they had to play Ole Miss. Ole Miss beat them as well, but Ole Miss is number 10 team. So it's like the teams that they're losing to, they're not subpar teams. He's playing the best defenses in the country and still putting up amazing numbers every week.
Mm-hmm. And then Marvin, on top of that, LSU is not losing because of their offense, because the offense is efficient. They're scoring. LSU is losing because of their defense. So I'm saying this guy is hands down carrying this team. Yeah.
But, and then they still have to play Georgia.
Oh. Yeah.
And I think that that holding the win-loss record against the individual player is not fair. His stats speak for themselves. And for anyone to say, well, he's not undefeated or he's not a one-loss guy, that type of thing, that's a team-oriented stat. That's not an individual. Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with what he's doing. We're going to try Ty one more time. All right, we got you for a few more minutes, Ty. I don't know if you heard Stephen M's question, but I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
I promise you, Boost Mobile evil.
I think it's
there he is.
There he is.
And then he's gone.
It has to be Stephen M. Smith's question directly, because otherwise it wouldn't have been happening. But while we have a few minutes left, I want to address the situation of Jalen Milroe being brought into the discussion. And Todd, if you can hear me, please jump in. For Alabama fans, we have a vested interest. They're pushing Jalen Milroe into this conversation very hard. How realistic is that? Don't get me wrong. I think everybody on this panel can agree that his story has been phenomenal. We have been cheering him on like no other this year. We've wanted to see his success. It's been amazing to see him going from infancy to maturity. But the thing is, his story is still being written. I'm excited that he's being mentioned for all this. How realistic is this, guys? Should he be mentioned in the conversation? And we'll let Steve start out, and then we'll move to Marvin and Stephen M., and then hopefully Tyler can round it out.
Okay, so the reason I'm happy that Tyler is here and that he's not is because let's just, Bama fans, shut up. Shut the hell up. Let Jalen Milroe continue to develop and worry about team ball, and let's go and win this natty. Let's get to all this, because what our fans are literally doing right now is feeding him something Nick Saban warns about, and that's rat poison. And those are the same fans who did not want him, said he wasn't any good, he was this, he was that, he's trash. Now, when he wins a couple of games, all of a sudden, he's the best thing since sliced bread. Now, all of a sudden, he's a Heisman candidate. Yes, Jalen Milroe is a freak of nature. His ceiling is high as crap, but let's kill all that and concentrate on playing Alabama football, because right now we're gelling. We're doing great at the right time of the season. We don't need all those distractions. We just don't. So yes, does he? I think this again. Let him continue to grow into what he's going to be, and then maybe we can push that Heisman thing next season. But right now, to me, that's a bunch of rat poison from the same thing. Because I'm telling you, if he loses against Georgia, those same fans are going to turn on him. Going to turn on him. I knew he wasn't a quarterback. I knew he did. So I don't want to hear that crap. So let's just root for the team and continue on. That's how I see it.
Okay. Marvin, you had a chance to hear Steven's argument for it or against it. Where do you stand in regards to Milroe and this Heisman Trophy talk?
Well, I'm happy for him that he's in the talk from a standpoint of, he's put in the work to even have his name mentioned in the conversation. That's the most important part. Now, it's two sides to the coin. The other side to that coin is I played with someone who was quote unquote a Heisman candidate in that Heisman campaign, and I've seen how it affects the locker room and on the field in terms of now coaches are calling plays to try to pad this person's stats to get them to the Heisman, so other people aren't getting the touches they would normally get. So it kind of steers you away from the normally scheduled program to, okay, let's just get this person the Heisman. And that can cause you to take an unnecessary L the way it causes us to take one, because you're trying to feed your quote unquote Heisman candidate when you should have focused on the team. And if he wins the Heisman as a byproduct, then so be it. But that can't be the focus of that team. And a lot of times when you have that Heisman campaign, that's what tends to happen.
Great point, Marvin.
Stephen M., bring this home, buddy.
I think this is the greatest thing that we're seeing about Jaylen Milroe's growth and development, not just as a player, but as a man. I watched him after the Kentucky game. He just accounted for 6 touchdowns. And he looks dead in the face of a reporter and goes, I still didn't do enough. There were throws I still missed. There were plays I still didn't make. There were things that I still need to improve and get better with. So he has not allowed, and I think will not allow, this Heisman talk to infiltrate his mind. But I do understand where Marvin and Steve are coming from, where you don't need this right now. You don't need this conversation right now. What you need right now is you handle Chattanooga, you handle Auburn, because you got to go down to Jordan-Hare, you handle Auburn, and then you get yourself to Atlanta, you handle Georgia, and then try your best, and then get into this college football playoff, because Bama gets in this playoff, it's over. If Bama gets in this playoff, it's a done deal. So, the thing is going to be, for right now, Jaylen Milroe, the continuation of growth, the continuation of development. But as Marvin mentioned, it's an honor for him to even be mentioned, because this is a young brother that before the season started had the longest odds to even win the quarterback job at plus 300, according to betting sites. So he goes from being the long shot to win the job to now he's being mentioned in Heisman talk. He's a semifinalist for the Davey O'Brien Award. He's a semifinalist for the Maxwell Award, may become a semifinalist for the Manning Award. So it's great to be recognized, but you have to continue the process of the next game ahead.
Absolutely. And let's just say this humor, the whole talk right now, what kind of numbers realistically can actually get him to New York right now? Me personally, I think he's going to average at least 100 yards on the ground, 350 in the air per game, with a huge win over Georgia in the SEC championship. Would that be enough to warrant bringing him up north, or let's just face it, work on it next year? Stephen started out, and then Marvin can close it out.
I mean, the only reason why I could see just in numbers like that getting Milroe to New York is we all know people are a sucker for a good storyline.
Yeah.
And Jaylen Milroe arguably has one of the best storylines in college football right now. So that would be the one area where it could be the avenue for him. Me personally, though, I would rather wait to see this next year, because next year, not only could he get after the Heisman, but now you're talking about he could get after the NFL draft stock too. So I feel like next year would be a much more advantageous. You're a much more profitable year for Milroe versus right now. Let's just continue to grow, develop, push, and get to this national championship.
Okay. And I have a small little something to throw in there in the mix about next year, but I'm gonna let Marvin talk first before we go that route. Marvin, how do you feel about that? To make this realistic, what would he have to do?
Honestly, he would have to pull a Christmas miracle, to be invited at this point, given the way the season started for him, not even playing against South Florida. So that, there are several things that happened early on that just, for me, it's going to be hard for him to overcome. But again, just being mentioned in that breath, that's an honor within itself. And then secondly, do we really need or want this type of distraction if we get into the playoffs, which we should going to the playoffs? Because we all know the Heisman stuff is mid-December, right in the middle of when most people are making their preparations for that playoff game. So, and, being completely fair about it, I wouldn't want to go if I was him, knowing that, we still have 2 games left and Jayden Daniels has already accounted for over 4,000 yards of total offense and 38 touchdowns. We all know who the Heisman is going to at this point. If it does not go back to him and that boot, it's a complete robbery, just being honest about it. The kid has had a phenomenal year, even playing on that subpar team.
Absolutely. While you were making that great point, Don Parker threw $5 our way. I'm happy Jalen is getting his flowers. However, he is still a work in progress. Scary. I hope the focus is on improvement and the next game. So definitely a great summary of everything we just said. And it's funny that Big Bill brought this up, which is one of my next talking points. And some may think this is a little crazy. Maybe not. But he is draft eligible. And we could look at a possibility if he continues to trend upwards, and especially has those big games, like I mentioned, possibly leaving early for the NFL draft. We've seen crazier things. We saw with Anthony Richardson last year. We watched his collective body of work. There were times where he looked like he forgot how to football. Just call it what it is. His ceiling is astronomical, incredible athlete, but doesn't quite have what I feel would warrant where he was selected at. His story's still being written, so that's to be determined. But if Milroe were to come out, I feel like he is further down the road in terms of development than Anthony Richardson is at this point. So let's talk about it, guys. Is this a reality when we might be facing? Marvin, start that out. How real can this be? Or how much do we need to kind of sweep this under the rug and just go about our business? And then we'll go to Steven.
Why is this even a topic of conversation? He would have to be absolutely insane to leave school this year unless he's planning on playing slot receiver or running back, because that's where he'll be in the NFL right now if he tries to go, because his skill set is not ready for NFL, nowhere near it. Do you understand how fast linebackers and DBs close in the NFL? And you're talking about running, taking those types of shots? Oh, no. So if he really has to improve on his game, passing game, in especially that 10 to 15 yard into the boundary, because that's one of the more difficult throws to make. And that's what most scouts are going to judge him on, because that's one of the more popular throws in the NFL, that throw into the boundary, whether it's the 5 yard out or if it's the dig. That is a very popular throw. And a lot of times they like to throw the back shoulder throw. So he's going to have to master those throws before he even begins to consider leaving school. Again, because if he goes now, wide receiver, running back, that's what he'll be relegated to.
I get what you're saying, but then again, I bring up the point of Anthony Richardson, though. Would you not argue that he's probably further along than, say, Anthony Richardson is?
No, because Anthony Richardson, they judged him based on his physique, athleticism, and what he didn't have around him. He had no talent around him, as you see from this year, Florida still getting killed. So they took his ability strictly on the measurables and what he could do. So, Milroe has more to work with on offense. So, and again, we've seen the struggles early on. If he leaves now, it's not going to be good for him. He really does need to stay in school and develop more and then give himself a shot next year. If he leaves this year, wide receiver, running back, H-back. I'm just telling you the way it's going to go.
Okay. Fair point. Well, Stephen M., you've had an opportunity to sit back and listen to Marvin's points. Where do you stand? Do you come from a different perspective? How do you feel about this, man?
No, because I'll give you two personal accounts that I witnessed myself when it comes down to Alabama players. I witnessed the account of Mack Wilson, and I witnessed the account of Savion Smith, both of them. I was in the room with Mack Wilson as he was making his decision to, what was he going to do in terms of the draft. And we were all telling him, you need to come back. You need to come back as for your senior year. Mac had the agents in his ear telling him, hey, you're going to be a second round pick. You're going to be a late first round guy. At the very worst, you're going to go third round. And Mac listened to everybody else in the room versus us around with him. He goes to the draft. He doesn't get picked until the fifth round. The money that Mack Wilson lost versus what he could have had if he would have came back for his senior year. And then the bigger tragedy of it all, Savion Smith. Savion knew that if I leave, I may go undrafted. And we were telling Savion, you're not ready. You are not ready. And he was coming off an injury. You're not ready. Savion listens to the agents. They tell him, hey, you're going to go fourth round. Savion enters the draft. He doesn't get drafted. And he's been bouncing around kind of ever since. So if you're Jalen Milroe, in the sense, you just got Tommy Reese, you're finally starting to grow with him. Things are finally starting to click. Get another year under your belt. Get a whole nother year so that now these scouts can put a full tape on you. They have full tape. They have more to study. They have more to break down on you. Right now, there's more question marks than answers.
That's a great point. Great job, fellas. And I do apologize that we weren't able to keep Ty on to give some solid points. He was actually on location at a speaking event. We're going to try again next week when he's actually going to be at his home with his laptop and he pays his bill. While we await our second guest, which is Brian Robinson, what we're going to do is go to another one of our best segments, and that allows the man who just spoke, Stephen N. Smith, to do his thing. You know, we got a lot to talk about. He's got a lot to update us about, especially going into this last home game, which will be senior day. So, guys, girls, all Alabama fans, it's time for the depth chart.
So where has the home season went? It went way too fast. You got the final home game of the season Saturday at Bryant-Denny, 11 a.m. kickoff. I know, tears, get up, get your pastry and your coffee, you'll be all right. You play against Chattanooga for senior day. A lot of seniors being honored inside of Bryant-Denny. I believe it'll be either pregame or at halftime where the seniors will be honored. But before I even go into that conversation, I mean, Marvin, going back to your senior day at Bama, like what was that atmosphere like? You taking that field for your last game inside Bryant-Denny, hearing the roar of the crowd, having your coach hand you those flowers and that football, and you being with your family. What was that like, that senior day?
Well, unfortunately, I did not get to participate in senior day because I was injured and didn't play my last year. But I did get my own pregame ceremony a year later. So, and I thank them for giving me my own pregame ceremony, man. So to hear that crowd when your name's called, bringing that ball out to that 50-yard line, man, and you got that 100,000 screaming your name. Oh, listen, man, there's nothing like it, man. So I got to watch several of my friends go through senior day, and just knowing that that's your last time putting that uniform on, coming out of that tunnel, man, that is a very emotional situation for most, because most realize that this is the last time they'll ever play football. Because, again, not everybody goes to the NFL. So I'm going to get lucky and go to the CFL, and now you have other options. But for a lot of them, this will be the last time that they actually played the game that they've played since they were 6-7 years old. So it's a very emotional time, man. So I just tell the guys, soak it up, enjoy it, man. Because, again, I didn't get to go enjoy my senior day, but I did get my own pregame ceremony. So, you know, some of the guys were jealous about that. Like, how you get your own pregame ceremony? But, yeah, just enjoy the moment, man. Soak it up.
and there'll be a lot of guys out there enjoying this moment. You look at just some names off the top of my head. Malachi Moore, this will be his senior day. Justin Eboigbe on defense will be his senior day. Jermaine Burton, this will be his senior day. Guys like Seth McLaughlin, his senior day. Roydell Williams, Jace McClellan, their senior day. The best kicker in the Saban era, Will Riker, this will be his senior day. So James Burnham, this will be his as well. So a lot of these guys are being sent off the right way, going up against UT Chattanooga. Some notes on the injury front. Deontay Alston and Jalen Key have been able to practice. They've been able to practice this week. They went through practice Monday and today. So it looks like they may give it a go here against UT Chattanooga. Me personally, I would just hold them to the Iron Bowl, but it looks like both of these two may try to give it a go here against UT Chattanooga. I know Jermaine Burton did not play last week. He was sick, better now, so looks like he'll go. Also, keep your eyes on junior defensive back Devontae Smith, who hurt his foot at the last week of fall camp. He was supposed to be the starting free safety. He had Jalen Key beat out, but hurt his foot. Final week of preseason camp, which is the reason why Jalen Key is the starter. Devontae Smith actually traveled with the team to play against Kentucky. He dressed out. He went through drills. He's ahead of schedule. This may be the week we can finally see him back on the field. If not this week, definitely by the Iron Bowl. But keep your eyes on Devontae Smith as he's about 95%.
Okay, good deal, good deal. And you had another thing, a point you wanted to go over, and it actually ties into the theme of Marvin's segment. We're about to release Constance Chaos. Stephen, you did talk about how being the underdog, which Alabama is right now in a lot of respects, especially going to SEC championship, could actually play into their favor. They're underdog there, and they're also the underdog with the college football playoff committee. But I'm not going to go too far into it. Marvin, it's time for your segment. And one of the things you want to talk about is the fact we've been disrespected this entire year. I feel it's played in our favor, but you're taking it personal. I'm going to let you handle it. So, ladies and gentlemen, get ready for the baddest segment in the land, Constant Chaos.
One of the things when you look at this team, it's the early loss to Texas, but you cannot penalize us for an early loss to Texas, who's currently the number 7 team with the 9th most difficult schedule. If you look at the top 10, tell me how this makes sense. Number 1, Ohio State. Strength of schedule, 15th. Best win, Penn State. Georgia, 100th strength of schedule. Best win, Missouri. Florida State, 49th strength of schedule. Best win, LSU. Washington, 75th. Best win, Oregon. Oregon, 65th. Texas, 9th. That is the only one who I could honestly say should be ahead of us. And how are they not ahead of Oregon, whose strength of schedule is 65th? So are you telling me that with the 8th most difficult schedule out of all teams in the top 10, we have the most difficult, that we should be sitting at number 8? Why is Oregon there with 65th? Why is Ohio State number 1 with 15th? Georgia number 2, 100th. How is your strength of schedule 100th, but you're the number 2 team in the country? At what point do they start to take into consideration the teams that Alabama has beat? We beat number 10 Ole Miss. We beat LSU. We beat Kentucky. We beat a lot of quality opponents. So at what point do they begin to respect this team and give us our just due? You know when that is? When we kick Georgia ass December 2nd. I guarantee you they'll respect us then. You put us where we belong after we beat Georgia soft ass with this 100th strength of schedule, but you want to put us behind all them? Man, listen, that's why you play the game, to let it all sort itself out. And this team is trending at the right time. So you don't have to give us respect. We're going to come take it. So the rest of the world better watch out, because this team is trending in the right direction, and Bama's on the damn way.
Real quick, Marvin, 1999 is being thrown your way from Genevieve House. Marvin, did you play in the NFL? Roll Tide.
Well, unfortunately, I had this horrible knee injury that just derailed my life. So I didn't get to make my NFL impact the way I should have. So, the thing that I love most in life was taken from me before I could even get to it.
But you did have opportunities, correct?
Yeah, the Dolphins brought me in as a free agent, but when you come in on that path, and that was after I had to go play arena football for some years to even show people I was back healthy.
Right.
It didn't help that we had Dr. Seuss for a team doctor, and he did a horrible job. So, I had to go back in, and I had to get my high school team doctor to scope my knee to just tell me what was wrong, because I knew something wasn't right. My high school team doctor, shout out to Dr. Barrow, Boney Barrow in Tuscaloosa. He scoped my knee, ACL halfway attached, medial meniscus still torn. My ACL, it was trash work, kneecap trash. It was all trash work. So I ended up going to Alabama's current team doctor, Dr. Kane, and he redid everything for me, man. I love that guy. Shout out to Dr. Kane, man. I've been fine ever since, but somebody said Les Fowler. That's what you want to call him? I call him Dr. Seuss. But yeah, so that man shouldn't be allowed to cut paper, let alone people. But that's the way the ball bounces sometimes. So, what can you say?
Absolutely. Folks, we're still waiting to hear from Brian Robinson as we monitor that situation. We will keep you updated. It's funny. You got to ask yourself, what does the playoff committee actually look at? They preach one thing, and then when that one thing, i.e., strength of schedule, as Marvin so greatly pointed out, isn't actually brought into the equation, that's hypocritical to me, because you look at who Alabama has played, 4 or 5 top 15, top 25 ranked teams, as opposed to one that Oregon's played, and their claim to fame or significant victory was beating a ranked Colorado team early in the season who has turned out to be trash. So what's it going to take? Is there a narrative here that the playoff committee is pushing toward us, that they don't want Bama in?
Well,
so this is where,
thing about it.
Go ahead,
Justin. I want you to consider one thing, though. Tell me it won't all work itself out when you look at who's ahead of us.
Well, and to your point, we have a couple of teams that are going to end up, solving that for us. Ohio State plays Michigan. Honestly, to me, I feel like the Pac-12 is going to cannibalize itself and get them out of the way. But the question still is out there, though. If some of these teams continue winning, except Ohio State and Michigan, does that present a problem? Stephen, I know that you're dying to speak on this. So as the sign here says, is Bama's playoff spot secure if they went out impressively? Pick this up, brother. How do you feel? But first, sorry, she likes you so much. Kelly Weathersby is throwing 19.99 at you. Unfortunately, the college football playoff committee is filled with Bama haters. Our boys are going to need to remove every ounce of doubt and force the committee to put them in. Roll Tide. Great way to start your segment out.
I'll say this. The one thing that Boo Carrigan and this committee has looked at is only one thing, and that's the eye test. They're not cared about strength of schedule. They're not cared about strength of record. They're not cared about who you play. It's when we look at you, how good did you look? And that's probably the most contradictory thing that I've ever seen from this committee, because when this thing first started in 2014, and you had Condoleezza Rice, Archie Manning, Jeff Long, those guys from the committee, they actually really took resume, strength of schedule, who you played, the teams that you beat. And that was all taken into account every single week. And you could tell by the rhetoric and the verbiage that they used, but it was taken into account every single week. This committee right here, it's like, boo, we don't know what we're doing. We're just going to throw you up there and you just say some stuff. And it's basically the eye test. They're not really looking at the meat and potatoes of this thing. But as Marvin mentioned, I feel like this thing will solve itself, because Washington and Oregon have to play Oregon State. That ain't no cakewalk.
That is true.
DJ Uyunglele is the real deal. Like, he is showing Clemson. That was Dabo's problem, not mine. DJ has come to Corvallis and he's turned up. Washington has to go to Corvallis at night. That's not an easy place to play at. I know that's not an easy place to play at. And I think Oregon State can go on the road to Eugene and beat Oregon. So Oregon State could take off both of those teams in 2 weeks, back-to-back weeks. But you look at Oregon State has to play Pitt. Pitt has tripped up Clemson. Remember the Deshaun Watson Clemson teams. So Pitt can be dangerous. Yes, Marvin.
I think Louisville will beat Florida State.
I'm with you on that train.
Okay, I like Louisville as well. We know Michigan, Ohio State, that'll solve itself. So I look at this. Oregon State can take care of a lot of this in back-to-back weeks. And then you also have to look at if Oklahoma plays Texas for the Big 12 championship, if Oklahoma topples Texas, then that just pushes that out the way too. So I'm a fan of this will solve itself. Bama continues to win impressively, win out. Everybody else will cancel each other out.
And don't sleep on Texas Tech. They have a legitimate shot to beat Texas.
I will say this. That game is in Lubbock. Lubbock is the dark side of the moon. It's tough to play in Lubbock.
Do not sleep on Texas Tech. I'm telling you, man, this is all going to work itself out. I promise you, by the time we get to the SEC championship, Georgia and Alabama will both be in the top 5. And I know that's only 2 weeks away, but remember what I told you. By the time SEC championship comes around, Georgia and Alabama will both be top 5. Winner of the SEC championship gets in the playoff. One loss, Alabama, we in. We kicking everybody's ass in the playoff. Bring the parade, bring the floats, get your popcorn ready. It's all going back through Tuscaloosa.
Get the Terry Saban statue built.
Yes. We appreciate you throwing that out there on the Fine Bomb show yesterday, Stephen. Hopefully we get some donations stirred up. Enough interest.
I'm starting the email process to Greg Byrne. Like, that statue's got to go up. Like, and I've already gotten in my mind the design of the statue. So it'll be where you'd have Miss Terry built to where her mouth is whispering something in Saban's ear, causing him to clap. So we've already got the design concept going right now, the statue.
Well, we got some super chats to get to before we move on to our last subject, and that's predictions and players of the game, which we all love doing. First, let's go ahead and let's talk to Adam Lamparello. $10, guys. I'll be honest, and please, no death threats. After watching Georgia against Ole Miss, UGA worries me. What do you think? Well, I'll be first to tell you right now, I completely got that prediction wrong. I thought Ole Miss was going to pull the upset. But there's some things that I noticed, and I felt like Ole Miss had to do to avoid being trounced. One was not doing anything to beat themselves, and that includes Lane being Lane. One of the things that I've noticed about Lane Kiffin is if he is evenly matched or even score or he's ahead, he's playing his game. No one can touch him. If he gets hit in the mouth, he's playing from behind. He goes into this shell, this funk, this other dimension where he just can't think right, do right, and he calls these plays. They're just god awful. It looks like they got from an old Tecmo Bowl. For those old people in the chat, you probably know what I'm talking about. How his halfback dive, quarterback power, and then third down, third and long, chunk it as far as you possibly can and hope somebody runs underneath it. Well, that led to their demise. And because of their inept offense, the defense was tired. The defense was already at a disadvantage because of who, Marvin? Pete Golding. You can't sit there and tell me that Georgia's offense, no disrespect to the Georgia fans in our chat right now, you cannot tell me that Georgia's offense was that spectacular. But Marvin, you raised your hand, and I'm going to go ahead and give it to you.
Here's the bottom line. I had no hopes that Ole Miss would beat Georgia at all. Zero. Because I know what Lane likes to do. Lane is a gambler, and you cannot go for it in your own territory and get stopped and turn the ball over with Pete Golding as your damn defensive coordinator. How many times you going to give Georgia the ball inside the 40 because you keep going for it? You know your defensive coordinator is trash. Ain't no way in the hell. Listen, if it's 4th and a half an inch, I'm punting. If Pete, my damn defensive coordinator, I'm going to throw it all the way down the field in the damn corner. How do you go for it on 4th and short in your own territory with Pete Golding as your defensive coordinator?
Hey, Marvin, I'm not trying to infuriate you even more, but Pete Golding is also a nominee for the Frank Broyles Award.
Hey, I don't know. Well,
is it a participation award?
Right, because you know what? That just waters the award down. You look at what he did against LSU and so many others. Pete has given up 10,000 points this damn season.
It's so crazy how Pete Golding is a nominee for and Kevin Steele is not.
I don't know. Pete might be dating one of their daughters or something. I don't damn know.
Something, because I'm sorry, Mike Bobo is not an innovator of offense, folks. Hate to break it to anybody, but Stephen, weigh in on this so we can move to the next super chat.
I will say that I know Georgia scares some people, but keep in mind Georgia had a close call with Auburn. Auburn should have won that game.
Stephen, they were 14-3 at half to South Carolina.
Yes.
They were 21-14 at half with UAB. Let's be clear. This is not the same Georgia team
It's not.
from last year, the year before.
It's not.
And again, strength of schedule, 100th. Nothing is scary about a team that has 100th strength of schedule, and they barely damn beating people.
But here's the thing, though. Carson Beck's not athletic. You put some pressure on him. He's erratic throwing the football. And the growth of Jalen Milroe and his legs, there's the X factor.
Carson Beck is athletic for a ping pong player.
I mean, look. Georgia doesn't have Bear Alexander. There's no Jordan Davis. There's no Nolan Smith. There's no N'Kobe Dean. Those guys aren't there. So
our defense will keep us in the game. It's just a matter of our offensive line holding up, giving that offense enough. If we can put up 24-28, we win.
I'm gonna say this: our offensive line, big Jaden Roberts. Look at that kid. That dude with Booker and Latham, and it seems like finally McLaughlin got the snap right. So and Proctor's grown up.
Yeah, and may I remind everybody that we had 0 sacks surrendered this past Saturday. Growth is happening right before us, but no disrespect to Georgia. They're a great team. Are they the caliber of what we've seen these past 2-3 years? No, not necessarily. But how Georgia has won their games is because they have forced the other teams to make mistakes and shoot themselves in the foot. And once that's happened, they're able to capitalize, and it's a runaway. So as long as Alabama doesn't do anything to beat themselves, then they win this game and they win decisively. But we'll get to that as that approaches. Real quick, Don Parker's got $5 our way. It's simple. Beat everyone we line up against, and the committee will be irrelevant. And by the way, we are still number 8 according to the latest rankings. All right, guys, it's about that time. It's time to go to the predictions and players of the game. No marquee opponent this week. No one to really get excited about and try to figure, out weaknesses and deficiencies and how we have this advantage or that advantage. The fact is we have the overall advantage in this game. So I really want to know more so in a game like this, what are you looking for? What do you want to see? How much of the first team do you actually want to see or need to see? And then if you would, give a score. If you don't feel like giving a score, just tell us what you're looking for and then give us some players of the game. Marvin, start us out, and Stephen M. will go next.
This is basically a tune-up game. I would expect to see the starters play first quarter, maybe halfway through the second, no longer than that, and they should be out of there. This is a chance where you get the younger guys some reps, some guys you may rely on, in the SEC championship against Auburn and in the playoffs. This is that chance to see, what they're really made of. Now, as far as, a prediction, last week my prediction was 41-13. I told y'all you were going to see a complete game from this team. Did I not tell y'all this? Now,
you absolutely right.
I was off by 8 on each side because the final score was 49-21. I was so close. So, but for this game, I'm thinking Bama's going to win big. I think this is when we're going to get the shutout. We're going to preserve it. So I'm going to go 63-0.
Okay, I'll take that. I got a question for you, Marvin, from John Reggie. Marvin, what defense would you run to stop Georgia? And then we'll get to Stephen's answer.
Considering how much they like to get the ball to Brock Bowers, I'd run some type of 2-man bracket on Brock Bowers, whatever side he's lined up to, and then I play zone across the board from that. And occasionally I mix in some stunts, some pressures up front to rattle Carson Beck so that he doesn't have all day to throw the ball. But more than anything, I just run a 2-man bracket on Carson Beck, and everything else will be a zone concept. Or if I'm running a man concept, I would still, have somebody playing underneath Brock Bowers, because we seen against Auburn, they threw the ball to Brock Bowers 10, 12 times in a row. We know that's who they want to get the ball to. Anyone else, we can take that, 5 to 10 yard gain. That's just one play. Just don't let Brock Bowers beat you. And clearly that's their weapon of choice. So I would definitely stick to that game play. I definitely wouldn't run cover 2, because I know how Georgia likes to run that tunnel screen and slip Bowers between the hashes. That is their favorite play to run. So there ain't no way in hell I'd run cover 2.
Very well said. Hope that answers your question, John. We appreciate the question. Stephen and Smith, you're the voice of reason here. You know, Chattanooga's not that bad of a team. I believe they've only had, 3 losses. They have a seasoned quarterback, Chase Artropius, transfer from UCLA. Shouldn't be much of a problem, but what do you want to see? What group do you want to see improve? How much of Milroe do you want or need to see? Talk to us. Let us know how you feel. Give us a player or players of the game, offense and defense, and then I'll finish it up.
I look at this game for the offensive line. The offensive line to establish more of a presence up front. This is a game for the offensive line to get this run game even more established with Jace McClellan, Roydell. This should be a game where Jaylen Milroe and Justice Haynes get a lot of work. This is a game where you're working Richard Young as well at that running back position. So the offensive line definitely in the ground and pound aspect. For Jaylen Milroe, for me, continuing the work on the 10 to 15-yard throws to either side of the boundary. Be a good game for that. Have him, first quarter, middle of the second quarter. Get Ty Simpson in there. Get Ty Simpson reps with the first team because he's going to need those. Get him some reps with the first team. I kind of want to see more of Kobe Prentice chirp a little bit more. Jalen Hale chirp a little bit more. Kendrick Law chirp a little bit more. We've seen quality from Bond and Burton, but some of these other receivers can chirp a bit more here in this game. And then defensively, young guys defensively. Jake Pope. Let's get some reps in for him. Some reps for Tony Mitchell. Some reps in for Kendrick Blackshire, Justin Jefferson, and all of these other guys defensively. Because when you play against Auburn, Georgia, and of course in the college football playoff, these guys are going to need valuable reps here. So for these young guys, get them out there, get them exposed, get them on the field. Let's see what they can bring, because there's talent that you don't want to have lost to the portal, especially if you could utilize that talent on the field and put it into their heads that, hey, they value me, right? And this is a game where you can show a Jake Pope, bro, I value you. Get them out there. Again, you can show a Brayson Hubbard, a Tony Mitchell, I value you. Get them out there. Again, you can show a Justin Jefferson, I value you. Get them out there. So this is that kind of football game right here against Chattanooga, where you can see a lot of these young kids get out there, get their feet wet, get them into some real live game action.
I love it. I love it. What both you guys had to say. For me, ultimately, let's seal the deal early. Just don't keep the stars out there longer than they need to be and risk injury. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
Also, I want to see more of Ty Simpson. I want to see an extensive look at Ty Simpson. Last game, we all took a big gasp when Jalen Milroe hit the floor, and we weren't sure if he was coming back or the extent of his injury. That right there tells me we'd better start prepping Ty Simpson to be able to come in. God forbid the bad happens, and that's Milroe exiting. We don't want that at all. I'm not going to speak it into existence, but getting meaningful reps is huge for Ty Simpson in this game. And I'll go ahead and name him as my player of a game because I want to see that much of him. He did great this past week against Kentucky. The throws he made were incredible. Off platform, making some NFL throws that made your jaw just drop. His ceiling is looking very good. And Steve, I'll go ahead and take a defensive player that you just spoke of, Jake Pope. Man, I don't want him to leave either. I feel like he is the Vinny Cincinnati of this generation, and we need that kind of player on that defense, that guy who exudes toughness and who can ball a little bit. So I'm going to go with those two guys. I'm going to pitch a shutout as well. Alabama 52, UT Chattanooga 0. All right, it is time now to start closing things down. As we always do, folks, we're going to go around the room, and the reigning people of our panel that you are blessed to see is going to tell you how to find them and the various things that they have going on. And first of all, I got to apologize that we did not see Brian Robinson tonight, as promised. I will try to figure out what happened and if we can probably reschedule. So, again, I do apologize. But Marvin, start us out as you always do. Talk to us about 40 Plus Strong, how they can get their hands on it, and then where they can find you on social media, sir.
You can find me on Instagram, Constant45. It's real simple. There's a link to Amazon on my Instagram to purchase a copy of my book, Physical and Mental Fitness at 40 Plus. You know, if you're in your late 30s, 40s, or 50s, and again, you're looking for a tool that'll help you, you know, get back to feeling like your old self. You know, it's definitely a great resource. Talks about what to eat, when to eat, you know, dealing with stress. 3 different 6-week workout programs in there to get you back on track, keep you on track. And again, y'all see them. They real. They are real. It's real. The 6-pack is real, you know. So, you know, again, it's a great resource, and especially going into the holidays, you know, this is when most people tend to drop the ball. So, you know, I talk about, you know, managing holidays and those expectations with family and friends, because it's a lot of commitments, a lot of engagement. So, you know, it's all talked about in the book. Great resource. Best $15 you'll ever spend.
Well said. And I can definitely agree to that, folks. It's worth the purchase for a lifestyle change. Stephen and Smith, what you got? How they can find you? What you going to talk about tomorrow night on In My Own Words? Fill us in, sir.
Well, we're talking about Senior Day. We're talking about getting prepared for the Iron Bowl against Auburn, which I will be at Jordan-Hare next week. We're talking about the SEC championship game. Bama, an underdog. When Bama's been the underdog in this matchup against Georgia, great things have happened for Alabama. Remember, Bama was the underdog in the 2020 regular season game against Georgia, won that. Bama was the underdog for the 2021 SEC championship game, but remember, Bryce Young tore them up. Bama was the underdog in the college football playoff national championship game, 2018 game off the 17 season. That's where 2nd and 26 happened. Bama was a 2-point underdog to Georgia in the 2015 matchup, the one in the monsoon of rain where Derrick Henry kicked their teeth in. So, I mean, when Bama's been the underdog to Georgia, we have seen good things happen for Crimson Tide football. And according to BetMGM, Caesar Sportsbook, DraftKings, any of your betting sites that you peruse, Bama is a 3-point dog to Georgia. So history has a chance to repeat itself once again. This will be the 4th time that Bama and Georgia will go at it for an SEC title during the 2012 season, 2018 season, and the 2021 campaign. Nick Saban is 4-1 all time against Kirby Smart here. So it's going to be a fun matchup in Atlanta coming up soon. But we're going to have fun with On In My Own Words. We're talking Senior Day. We're talking get everybody ready for Auburn and Georgia. It is about to get real fun. And like I said, I'm going to have my eyes on Oregon State.
Hey, man, real quick. Keith Holcomb, you're wrong for that.
What?
Wow. We know, Marvin. We see that 6-pack when you wear your belly shirt.
Keith, you're wrong for that.
but to wrap this up, like I said, guys, like I'm looking forward to watching Oregon State these next 2 weeks. Because DJ Uyunglele is for real, and if he can take care of his light work of knocking out Washington and then knocking out Oregon, that's gonna be real big.
And they actually play halfway decent defense at Oregon State.
And they play halfway decent defense at Oregon State.
Yeah, it's amazing seeing what DJ Uyunglele and Bo Nix are able to do once they escape coaches that are inept at developing them, as well as running an offensive system that benefits their abilities. They are skyrocketing and playing themselves into a pretty nice NFL contract. Real quick, Efren Davis, is the Bama Standard doing anything for the Iron Bowl? Well, you know how we do things here. It's always big. So tune in next week. We're going to be getting y'all ready the right way. But listen, we got a lot of content coming your way before then. So I need everybody to stay tuned tonight.
Ooh,
yes.
While I'm thinking about it, guys, stay tuned. Alabama, Georgia, SEC championship. Guess who's probably doing watch party? Huge.
Okay.
Oh, man, just another chance to flex the guns. But yeah, more than likely watch party in Atlanta if you're here. I'll give you the details later.
Stay tuned
Love
for that.
you too, Keith.
But as I was saying, we got the top quality program in terms of Alabama content tonight. The final whistle, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern, hosted by Chris James, Dan James, Matt Caddell, Coach Smook, Ty Hayes, and Lushawn Graves. And then tomorrow night, come in for the Crimson Dynasty, hosted by Cece Payne. Her guest tomorrow night is going to be former offensive lineman from the 2020 National Championship, Chris Owens. Oh, and don't forget, right after that, well, at 8:15 p.m. Central, Teague's Take with George Teague will be going live on this channel Friday night before the game to get you ready. We got that headset talk with Coach Smoot, the video simulation, been very popular here on this channel. Check that out. And then Saturday, right after the game, the Bama Standard post-game show will be going live. We're covering every single thing Bama related. So please, please stay tuned and support this channel. We thank you for everything you've done. Before you head out, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you soon. Roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.
Roll it.